point and see whether we've managed to get Councillor Amos into the meeting by that time. Does that sound suitable to you?
That's no problem.
Thank you. So I'll just do some of the usual stuff about the protocols and the etiquette for this kind of meeting. You're all familiar with that now, but if you are not speaking, can you please ensure that your microphone remains muted? And then if you are asked to speak, you can unmute your microphone so that you can speak, and then go back on mute as soon as you've finished what you have to say. If you have a question, please press the virtual hand so that your hand is raised, and then we will be able to come to you and see that you've got your hand raised. But then we do need you to remember to take your hand down once you've finished speaking. Equally, you will use your hand to vote and raise your virtual hand when you're voting. But again, once your vote has been registered and I've said what the outcome is, can you please take your hand down again so that we don't end up getting any confusion about that. If you have to leave the meeting at any stage, it's very helpful if you could let Democratic Services know that, either by raising your hand, but probably more effectively if you just put a message in the chat if you are called away at any point. And just to remind you that if you do not hear the whole of a debate, you should not vote on that item. If you hear some parts of it, that isn't enough. You have to hear the whole of the debate. So we have to rely on you all to be honest about that. So if there is anything that means that you drop out of a particular item, it's okay if it's just some of the introduction to it, but if it's the actual debate, then you shouldn't vote on it. If you have to declare an interest in a matter, you'll need to tell us at the appropriate point in the agenda, and then whilst that item is being dealt with, you'll need to turn off your camera and your microphone so that you're not seen as playing any part in the meeting. When we come to the recommendations, I will invite you to vote, and just for the purposes of counting and the easiest way that we can count these things, I will ask first if there are any abstentions, secondly if there are people voting against the motion, and then thirdly for those who are voting in favour. So that concludes the introduction that I normally give. I'll just check, Myra, if you had any more information about Councillor Amos?
Anne is still on the telephone with him, Candice. She's trying to, but at the moment he's sending different links and things, but he's still unable to join.
Right, well, Mr. Mayor, I wonder if you would like to start the agenda. The first few items on the agenda we can probably deal with even in the absence of both Councillor Amos and Councillor Darren Roberts, because of course he's in difficulties getting here as well. And then perhaps we can review.
I'm present, Monitoring Officer.
Oh, there we are. I can't
Thank
see
you.
him, but I can hear him. There we are. Marvellous. Thank you. So we're really just waiting for Councillor Amos now. And if perhaps, Mr. Mayor, if you want to start the meeting, and the recording I can see has started, so we'll then proceed and see where we get to when he can join us.
Okay, thank you very much, Warrant Officer. Croeso I cyfarfod llawn y cwnia. Good afternoon, welcome to Myrtle County Borough Full Council meeting on Wednesday the 3rd of February 2021. Please note that this meeting has been recorded and may be broadcast via the Authority internet site. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the Authority. Before we begin tonight's business, I'd like to call upon the leader to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Colleagues, as I'm sure you know, we were all deeply saddened by the loss and news yesterday of the sad passing of Captain Sir Tom Moore. Captain Sir Tom Moore was not only a decorated war veteran, but of course, during this awful pandemic, he raised a smile and brightened all of our days with his wonderful achievement during isolation last year in raising over £30 million for the NHS. absolutely phenomenal in his 100th year as well. And of course, subsequent to that, he, you know, made us enjoy that song that he did, you know, You'll Never Walk Alone, and really gave us the spirit that we all have today. One thing that he said often was, tomorrow will be a beautiful day, the clouds will move, and that will really stay with me for a very long time. So in honour and recognition of you, Captain Sir Tom Moore, you will never walk alone. You will always be in our hearts. And so, colleagues, I call not only upon us all to have a minute's silence, but to then finish and conclude that minute's silence with a round of applause. If you will join me now, Mr. Mayor, colleagues, in having a minute's silence in recognition of Captain Sir Tom Moore. Please unmute your mic.
Yeah.
Thank you, colleagues, ever so much. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We'll go on to item number 1, apologies for absence.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have any formal apologies. I know that we've had some discussion about people who were struggling to get in, but as far as I'm aware, we have no formal apologies for absence.
Thank you very much. We'll go to item 2, any declarations of interest?
Mr. Mayor, I have a declaration of interest in relation to agenda item number 6, which I understand may become agenda item number 5 tonight, if you will allow me to say that. And that is a personal and prejudicial interest in relation to that item, because I am the council leader and also I currently hold the cabinet portfolio for education. So I shall leave the meeting at that point.
Thank you very much. No other declaration of interest?
No, none that I can see, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We'll go on to item number 3, which are the minutes of previous meetings. Items 3A to 3J. Do we have a mover for those meetings?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move those minutes.
Do we have a seconder?
Yeah, I second those minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Can we put that to the vote, please?
Can I ask,
In-
we will do this in that order, can I ask if there's anybody who wishes to abstain? And then anybody who wishes to vote against, please show now. And then all those in favour, please show now. Maya, can you tell me, is that complete? That looks as though that's everybody to me.
Yes, it looks like Caris, yes.
Thank you. That's carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mother. We're going to item number 4, the revenue budget. To consider report from Interim Chief Executive. I call upon Councillor Andrew Barry. Could I invite you to address the council, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The revenue budget 2021-22, our medium-term financial plan covering 2020-21 to 2023-24 was approved by Council 4th of March 2020. The plan projected a deficit for the coming financial year of 3.582 million. As recently as the Medium-Term Financial Plan 2019, written in January 2019 for the Audit Committee, we were projecting a deficit of nearly 14 million. We currently have a surplus of 394,000, placing us in an excellent position to approach this coming year's financial challenges. With the financial uncertainties at present, this report only deals with 2021-22. There will be a report on the medium-term financial plan for the coming years that I will bring to Cabinet and full Council once we have more clarity about the financial picture. In terms of preparation for 21-22, we've held councillor workshops on the 21st, Joint Governance Scrutiny Audit Committee on the 27th of this month, where members had an opportunity on both occasions to scrutinise the detail of these financial proposals line by line, covering key data sets in the calculation of our revenue grant at Appendix 1 and 2, perceived additional demands on the authority of 623,000, detailed at Appendix 4, our capacity review driven by our Assurance Board and totalling £705,000 £705,000 at Appendix 5, and service efficiencies of 1.041 million achieved through more effective use of our resources at Appendix 6. There were many issues covered at the workshops and joint audit and governance. I want to make reference to a few of the key areas picked up to focus on the issues that potentially would affect the financial element of the report and material affect the recommendations. Both councillors Clive Jones and Declan Salmon asked about the court, legal and professional services budget, item 25 under additional demands at the workshop. I'll be picking that with a review of legal costs in the same way we're doing the review of the fleet and asset management later this month. Housing, homeless and temporary accommodation, item 30 and 73 under additional demands was raised by Councillor David Jones and Councillor Ian Thomas. There will be a workshop for councillors members on Thursday the 8th of February this year. The tractor was brought up by Councillor David Jones under item 28. The vehicle was at the end of lease life and another being sought under the grant scheme. The fleet review that is currently ongoing is being referred to the Scrutiny Committee to have full sight of the review in its current form. School deficits under item 3 was highlighted by Councillor David Chaplin, shows reducing deficits with 5 schools in 2021, 8 schools 21-22 and 12 schools 22-23. The deficits are being reviewed using the school's financial monitoring, scrutiny and intervention policy by the leader and Sue Walker with the heads and the chairs of governors at Schools Budget Forum. And ultimately, the leader and Sue Walker will be held account at the Budget Board. And Councillor Harvey Jones, as chair of Relationship Scrutiny, will hold them account also. But be assured that, I mean, that's a top team and we've got every confidence they're going to deal with that effectively. The HWRC probably had the most input, including Councillor Bill Smith, Ian Thomas, Councillor Brent Carter, Councillor Julian Amos and Councillor Clive Jones, all contributing and finding cross-party support for the issue, for the item. As a result, Councillor David Hughes, the Cabinet member, in consultation with Judith, our lead officer, and Cabinet have withdrawn the item, which I'll refer to later on in recommendations. Other considerations members have been asked to consider within section 5 of the report include the corporate vacancy factor increase of 150,000 and the release of 350,000 from the employee severance costs, as our financial position allows options rather than just redundancy at present. Other key assumptions members have been asked to consider the employee pay award, 2% per annum already accounted for, the projection of 2% settlements in the Welsh Government funding for 21-22 to 23-24, and obviously the council tax increase at this stage at 499 and obviously under review and hopefully to be reduced. The reason for optimism is due to all that I mentioned there, and obviously the revenue settlement of 4.64% or an additional 4.5 million because of our data sets I referred to earlier. The COVID hardship fund, we are pleased, will be continued into 21-22, and the consequence of all that work carried out by the authority has resulted in the authority having to face the coming year with a surplus of £394,000. Before moving to the recommendations, Mr. Mayor, I'm sure members will join me in thanking Ellis Cooper, our interim chief executive, Alan Owens, the deputy interim chief exec, Steve Jones, our 151 officer, all our lead officers or directors, as I like to call them, and in particular our staff who in the last 12 months have had to deal with Storm Dennis, COVID, and as a result, agile working, all-town testing, team meeting after team meeting, and all under the gaze of Welsh Government advisors. And still, this authority is number one in Wales for grants, distribution, and in a surplus position of 394,000. Extraordinary. So thank you to all the staff and on behalf of the members and the residents of this authority. So if I take you to the recommendations, Mr. Mayor, 2.1 to 2.6, and 2.1, the implications of the provisional local government settlement for 2021-22 outlined in section 5 and appendix 1 to 3 be noted and accepted. 2.2, the net additional demands of 623,000 outlined in section 5 appendix 4 be approved. 2.3, the capacity exercise proposals totaling 705,000 outlined in section 5 and appendix 5 be approved. 2.4, the corporate vacancy factor increase of 150,000 be outlined in section 5 be approved. 2.5, the increase of 350,000 from employee severance costs outlined in section 5 be approved. And finally, 2.6, the service efficiencies of 1.041 million outlined in section 5 and appendix 6, but now that'll be changed to subject to the removal of item 31, household waste recycling centres, 15,000 for 21-22, and the corresponding adjustment to the 4.041 million be approved. Mr. Mayor, I move the proposals.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. Members, any questions?
Mr. Mayor, shall I second that item first
Oh, yeah,
for
you
you?
got to,
Is that
yeah.
okay? So, yes, I'd like to second that item and just echo what my cabinet member has just reiterated. And again, just thank colleagues for their support in coming to this report for council tonight and their feedback in workshops that we had an audit committee as well. So thank you for that, Mr. Mayor. I second
Yeah,
that.
just testing, so. We'll go on now to any questions, please.
I can see that there is a hand up, Mr. Mayor. Oh, I can see that Councillor Julian Amos has his hand up and one other, and I can't see who the other one is.
Clive Jones.
Clive Jones. So I think Councillor Clive Jones was first, and then Councillor Amos, and then Councillor David Jones.
I thought I saw Councillor Roberts' hand up. Was I mistaken?
Yes, my hand is up, Monitoring Officer.
I think, Monitoring Officer, Councillor Roberts' hand was up first.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
I couldn't see that on my screen, but that's fine. If you're all agreed that Councillor Darren Roberts was first, then I'm sure Mr. Mayor will call Darren Roberts first.
Thank you.
I'm not precious about it, Mr. Mayor, but I gladly go first. It's in relation to recommendation 2.6, and Councillor Barry has already mentioned the removal of item item what is it? 31.
Yeah.
31, yes. Following on from the workshops, Mr. Mayor, and obviously the joint audit and scrutiny meeting, discussions have taken place obviously within the Labour group, and we've got a few questions and possibly items that we would like to remove as well, if that's possible. Can we deal with that now, please?
Yeah, I mean, if you are proposing amendment, you can propose amendments to the recommendation, yes?
And we can deal with them one by one, Monitoring Officer, is that okay?
I think you'll have to, because I think
Yeah.
that's the only way you'd be able to manage it at this stage. My only difficulty is that you are then going to struggle because you're not going to be able to adjust the figures. If you remove figures now, you're going to struggle to adjust the figures as to what it is that you are finally then agreeing. I don't know if Steve is able to say anything more, if he is able to deal with it, if it's dealt with in that way. Is Steve Jones able to just make any comment about that?
If I could, please, Caris, yes, is what we'll basically have is if it's approved that certain items are not going to be supported, then obviously then we'll have to change a recommendation or we can calculate then, I think, exactly what that would mean for efficiencies or some of the other items then. So that's something we could do, but obviously that would be if the actual items are approved.
That's fine, Steve, thank you. If we take them, I mean, it may be that council doesn't go along with our wishes anyway, and they remain. So, but I think it'd be prudent to deal with them as we go along. The first one is on page 79, and it's item 26. It's the transport removal of the school transport for Edwardsville. I understand that this is still out to consultation, Mr. Mayor. So wouldn't it be prudent to remove this subject to the conclusion of the consultation and then make a decision on it? That's the first one.
So are you proposing that then as an amendment that is removed, Councillor Roberts?
I am, yes, Monitoring Officer.
Is that seconded?
Yeah, second that, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any questions about that amendment? Councillor Mitten?
Yes, thank you, Monitoring Officer. Monitoring Officer, can we just have some clarity on Councillor Darren Roberts's question, in fairness to him, in relation to that item with regards to the consultation, just for some clarity, please?
Yes, if I can give some clarity, Monitoring Officer and Chair. Yeah, that is correct. This item is out to consultation at the moment, which will come back to full council.
Thank you, Alan.
Sorry, if I can just come in there. There are a number of people who got their hands up now. I have a record of who was going to ask questions on the substantive motion, but can I just be clear that we are now taking questions on the amendment? So unless you have a question on the amendment, could you put your hand down so that we're just clear about what everybody is asking? And then I can still see there is one hand raised, and I'm afraid Democratic Services are going to have to help me to say who that is.
Caris, it's Councillor David Jones.
So, Councillor David Jones, Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Jones? David Jones. Any
Mr.
questions,
Mayor.
please?
Could Alan or someone tell us exactly what stage the consultation is at the moment, please?
Yes, Councillor Jones, I believe that it closed last week, so we'll be reporting on the findings.
Okay. Thank you for that, Alan.
And then, Mayor, I can't see any further questions on that first amendment, unless that Councillor Clive Jones is asking a question on that amendment.
Yes, well, it's in a question to Alan Owen. Does Alan Owen know, or anybody know, when the result of that consultation is going to be presented to whoever?
Yes, Councillor Jones will be presented in the next council meeting in February, which I believe is the 24th.
Yeah, that's correct.
So are there any more questions?
No indication. Mr. Oh, Councillor Mitten.
Monitoring Officer, it's not a question. Darren, can you just remind me what your amendment is? Apologies.
Just to remove it from the efficiencies at this stage, Leader, because it's out to consultation and we don't know what the result is at this stage. So I just think it's prudent that it's removed. Obviously, it can be put back in at a further date should the local authority decide to go with the outcome of the consultation.
Thank you for that. Monitoring Officer, would it be appropriate that Councillor Roberts and I agree then to perhaps defer this item? With Councillor Jones seconding it, but happy to support a deferment of it because the consultation hasn't been fully explored?
I think probably the best thing to do is to vote on the amendment to remove it, because you've got a moved and seconded proposal that subject to the one amendment to recommendation that was being made by Councillor Barry. So I think in order for us to keep track of what we're doing, and I understand that Councillor Roberts may have a few of these, the best way is going to be to do them as amendments. So unless there's any other questions, I think you're probably into comments on the amendment, and then we'd be proceeding to the vote.
Yep. Members, any comments on the amendment?
No, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Kevin Gibbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Monitoring Officer. I just want to echo Darren's sentiments on this. We do really need to get the results of this consultation in first, because what we are talking about here is making sure there is a safe walking route for the children to get to school, and that which is quite imperative on this. So I would say we should be supporting this until the result of that safe route consultation. Thank you.
Right.
There are no other people indicating to speak. So
we had one come up, and Councillor Andrew Barry down. Did that go back down? There's a hand up on my screen. I don't know if it's Andrew Barry.
Yeah. Monitoring Officer, it's a question of clarity. It is the item. What was the number item?
It was page 79, line 26.
Line 26. On that specific item, as it's in relation to school transport, I don't think I'll vote on that. I'll have to abstain on that, I think, Monitoring Officer, because I do a school contract with the...
I think technically you need to declare an interest in that particular line. You couldn't have known that was going to be raised in advance, and therefore you couldn't have declared that interest in advance. But I think it would be correct now if you were to knock off your camera and your microphone, and we will record that you've declared an interest, because it is about a matter where you have a specific interest. Yeah. I can see Councillor John Thomas is going to say the same thing to me, so unless Councillor John Thomas is saying anything different, perhaps he can just also knock off his camera and his microphone, unless there's anything different you want to say. Thank you. And Councillor Tony Rogers, you also indicated?
I'd like to disagree with you, Caris. I think that what should be done at the moment now is for talks to begin between the two leaders, Councillor Darren and Lisa, and have a look at it and bring it back or whatever. I don't think we should be voting this tonight. I think it should be deferred. Consultation between the leader of the Labour group and the leader of the Independent group, and fetch it back at appropriate time. Consultation, I think, is called for now. Thank you.
Are you proposing an amendment, a further amendment, Councillor Rogers? What we have is a proposed amendment that page 79, paragraph 26 is removed from what's considered today, and you've already been told that it will be brought back because there's going to be a report on the outcome of the consultation. So I think that's effectively what you want to happen, and that's what we're about to vote on, unless you want to propose a different.
I mean, I don't mind that really, but I didn't want to go down that road, to be honest with you. I wanted, as adults, as elected members, we sit in here going through this meeting, leave it to the two leaders, digest it, talk about it, bring it back, then make a decision. I think that's the best way to do this. I don't think we have to go down the road of any further amendments. Let these two get together and bring a report back and tell us exactly what's happening. Thank you.
We have a proposal which has been moved and seconded, and then we have an amendment which has been moved and seconded. And whilst I absolutely understand what you're saying, Councillor Rogers, we can't just remove ourselves from the procedure. So we have to complete the process, and the process is that we have an amendment which had been moved and seconded. So we're going to need to deal with those in that sequence, I think. And yes, whilst I think everybody understands.
Yeah, I accept that. Okay.
Okay. Councillor Chris Davis, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mountain Officer. It's just to perhaps indulge Councillor Roberts and Councillor Jones based on what we've just heard. And I fully support what you say about the need for consultation for that to come back to Council. Would you consider, obviously, the suggestion of a deferment of this matter until the matter becomes before Council rather than removing it?
I'm quite happy for it to be deferred, Chris. No problem, yeah. It's the right thing to do because we don't know what the outcome of the consultation is. So removing it until the next council meeting, deferring it, whichever way we want to label it, if you like, the outcome is the same, and I think it's the right decision. So yeah, I'm quite happy to retract my moving of that, if we, and then we go along with the leader's suggestion of deferring it. That's fine. But I think the monitoring officer might come in and say something different here.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you have a procedure that you have to follow. So, however much we would love to agree on a way forward, the only way I think we could possibly agree is if Councillor Andrew Barry, who moved the original motion, were to say that he, although now he's removed himself from the debate because this subject was something that he was party to, perhaps Councillor Mitten can move the original recommendations, however, with the slight amendment that says that that issue will be deferred, and then we won't proceed to deal with the amendment that's been suggested, and we will just go to, which I think will be the final recommendation. You'll just need to amend that yourselves and move that on the basis that it defers that item. But what I'm then going to say is, I think Councillor Roberts started what he had to say by saying he's got other items. And if he has other items, we're going to do this for each one of them. Councillor Roberts, how many other items have you got?
Another 3, monitoring officer. There was 4, but one has been retracted by Councillor Barry, and that was the item 31 with the recycling centres. So just the 3. So yeah, happy to deal with it whichever way you think is the most productive, monitoring officer.
I think the difficulty we've got is that we don't know whether everybody's going to agree to defer those items. I'm sure Councillor Mitten is going to come in and make a suggestion. Councillor Rogers, I think your hand was up first. Mr. Mayor, if you're happy for us to just hear from these 2 members.
Yeah, carry on. Yeah. Is it? I think Councillor.
That's okay.
No. You're on mute now. You weren't managed to speak just then. So if you can put yourself back on, open your mic again, Councillor Rogers.
Here we go.
There you are.
Right. Yeah. Sure. I'm prepared for the two letters sorted out. There's no problem to me. If I haven't moved anything, that means difference to me. So all I want is bring the fruition, bring it forward and get on with it.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Rogers.
Okay.
Councillor Mitten?
Yeah, thank you, monitoring officer. Before I do so, I've just noticed that the officers, Alan has just put his hand up. Shall we take any observations from Alan first, and then I was just going to add my support with Councillor Roberts in a way forward. So if we do that first, monitoring officer, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Yeah, I've just been trying to go back through the history of this case very quickly. and it does appear that there's delegated authority for officers to actually make the decision. So a deferral of this, obviously in consultation with the monitoring officer, I think is necessary.
Of that issue with regard to the transport?
Correct, yes.
I think we are pretty much settled that we want to defer that matter, because I think everybody's agreed it. I think where we're left, though, is that Councillor Roberts has got 3 other matters. We don't know what they are, so we don't know if everybody's going to agree them, and we therefore either have to deal with them one at a time as separate amendments, or we have to deal with it by saying that all of those matters will be deferred for further consideration if all of the members are happy to deal with it in that way. But I think that would require Councillor Mitten to move that those matters are deferred once we know from Councillor Roberts what they are. So perhaps, I don't know if Councillor Mitten or Councillor Roberts wants to say what they think about that.
Monitoring Officer, would you like me to go through the other 3 and then we can possibly come up with the best solution to deal with the business?
I think that would probably be the best way. I can see that Councillor Carter was going to say something. Councillor Carter, do you need to say something before we just hear from Councillor Roberts about what those issues are?
Yes, thanks, Caris. Just really quickly on what Alan has just said. For example, and with the school transport one, which we were talking about, if that's going to be deferred, but officers have got delegated authority, would that mean that it wouldn't come back to council anyway? Can I just have a bit of clarity on that, please?
That's a clarity that I need as an officer, Councillor Carter, and that's where I need to have a discussion with the monitoring officer tomorrow.
Lovely, thanks, Alan.
Monitoring officer, can I come in now? Is that okay? So yeah, just in support of Darren, Councillor Roberts, apologies I should say, just in support of Councillor Roberts, if he wishes to do that, and then we can perhaps, or I can now in Councillor Andrew Barry's absence, go back through those recommendations, specifically 2.6, and look at those matters to be deferred. I'm happy to do so and support Councillor Roberts in that.
Okay.
Thank you. So, Councillor Roberts, if you can tell us the other items that you were going to raise, and then we'll see if we can craft something that enables us to move forward.
Sounds like a great plan, Monitoring Officer, and thank you, Leader. The second one is on page 80, and it's reference number 28. It's in relation to the grounds maintenance deletion of a tractor. I think in previous years, this tractor has been very, very well used. It's been used to cut the grass on certain fields. It was used to clear snow, I think, up in Hillgerrig. And for the saving, the efficiency of £6,000, I don't think that would be value for money, because we would have to buy in that service if we needed to. So I'd like to remove that one, Monitoring Officer. That's the second one.
I can see the screen is lighting up, and I know that the screen is lighting up because there has been a development which I know allows for the function of that tractor to be fulfilled by something else. So I wonder if, I know it could be Councillor Hughes or Judith Jones, whichever one is going to just explain that issue.
Fine.
Councillor Hughes, if you're happy for me to. The lease on that particular tractor actually expired at the end of last year, so that tractor is no longer with us at the moment. What we're in the process of doing is using the Local Places for Nature funding opportunity, is replacing a similar machine so that the service, given to the public will be the same.
Okay, so for clarity, Judith, the deletion of the £6,000 is in relation to the lease expiring, but you're saying that we've still got access to a vehicle to fulfil the duties that this tractor was doing.
That's correct in so much as that the amount is for the lease of the vehicle. We are applying for grant funding for a replacement vehicle. We haven't yet secured it yet. We obviously have got other machinery within the department that we can carry out those functions with.
Okay. So in relation to that fact then, if it is in relation to the lease, then I will retract that, because obviously that lease has expired anyway. So the saving is from the lease, and then obviously we need to negotiate new funding moving forward. So that's that one retracted, Monitoring Officer. The second one is item 29 on page 80, street cleansing. I understand that we're out to consultation with the trade unions on this contract. Now, if the relevant members of staff are looking to leave the authority via VER or whichever method, I can understand the reasons for reducing the 42 and 43 hour contracts down to 37 hours. That makes perfect sense. But if they are not, then obviously this decision is still out with the trade unions. Could I have clarity on that, please?
Yeah, you'll recall that this efficiency was brought forward previously and was approved by council, and for many reasons it wasn't progressive at that time. We are in discussion with those members of staff that have expressed an interest to leave the authority, and we have got proposals to replace through the Kickstart scheme. So the numbers involved are yet to be finally determined. At the time, there were 6 employees interested, but that proposal is very much still a positive means of going forward.
Yeah. So there's still a piece of work to be done on this one then, Judith, really, with the negotiations?
In terms of securing, the formality of agreement with the staff, but obviously the first stage in doing so is getting council approval for us to release them in this way.
Okay. In that case, then, I would be looking to defer that one, Monitoring Officer, subject to the final details being made available to members. And then the final one is item 30 on page 80, which is fleet management. Again, a very small amount, but it allows the member of staff to move around freely, and it was felt that the savings and the aggravation factor associated with finding a suitable vehicle, if there is one, is not really necessary. So we would like to remove that one from the efficiencies, please. And that's it.
So I can see that Alan Owen had something to say, but it may have been on the previous item.
That is correct, Officer. It was on the business case with neighbouring services. I had a very productive conversation with the union this afternoon. So just for information, really, Councillor Roberts, it looks like there's a potential win-win situation.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Except that that's one of the ones that you are still pursuing.
Yes. Yes. I think that the detail of the win-win needs to be made clear to members before we make a decision on it, Monitoring Officer.
So just for us to be entirely clear, the items that you want deferred are page 79, paragraph or line 26, page 80, line 29, and page 80, line 30.
Yes, that's right, Monitoring Officer.
Alan Owen, are you going to say something still in regard to any of that? No, your hand has gone down, has it? And therefore, Clive Jones, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, it's just a query on number 30 about the removal of the van. It does say there in the narrative, in mitigation, a system can be developed where idle vehicles can be identified for use by the fleet manager. Could the chief officer or the cabinet member explain what that entails? Does it mean that if the van is taken away and the only vehicle or one of the vehicles there that the fleet engineer wants to use happens to be a lorry, is that the system that you're going to adopt?
Sorry, before the chief officer comes in there, I think we are going to have to try and get back into some form of proper debate. And if you are deferring that item, then I think you need to ask that question at the time when it comes back, because I think what's been agreed between the leader and between Councillor Roberts is that will be deferred. So if that's the case, I think we need to leave the questions until the time when it comes back.
Yeah, for clarity, Monitoring Officer, because we've been dipping back and forth, I'm asking to defer item 26, 29 and 30. Thank you.
So, Mayor, if the leader is happy to proceed, she can proceed. Sorry, Councillor Clyde-Jones? No. If the leader is happy to proceed, she can proceed on the basis that she proposes that the motions as previously moved are moved subject to the deferral of item 26, 29 and 30.
Right.
And adjustments that are needed for to the overall figures as a result of that.
Monitoring Officer, is it appropriate that I now do that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so thank you, colleagues. So if I just refer us back to those recommendations, and specifically the ones that we're moving to 2.1 to 2.5, and just address 2.6, the service efficiencies will now be adjusted in a monetary version to recognise some of those items that we are deferring, and they are items 26, 29 and 30, and so I move.
And then we will need that to be seconded again, please.
And Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to second that.
Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Mayor, you're now back to questions. And Councillor Clyde-Jones? No, sorry,
David.
It was Councillor David Jones, I'm sorry.
So, does that also include item 31 though?
No.
Because this is an amendment, or that's already gone, yeah?
Oh, that was the one that had originally been removed by Councillor Andrew Barry. Yes, that's been different as well.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that was Councillor Barry's amendment included in the leader's amendment?
Yes.
Just for clarity, thank you.
Apologies if it wasn't that clear, but Councillor Jones, yes, that's what I was referring to.
Thank you. Again, I can see that there's another hand up, but I can't see whose it is. If Councillor David Jones, if you could put your hand down, thank you. I can't see who that is.
Councillor Amos, Caris.
Councillor Amos. Councillor Amos, would you like to ask your question?
Well, yes, I thank you, Caris. Perhaps I need a bit of guidance from you on this one. It is a question, really, and I'd probably move on to it in my comments. I am a bit surprised that under the additional demands that the closure of the cemetery gates isn't in there. As members know, it's something that's become a bit of a perennial for me, that when we discuss the revenue budget, this is something I raised, and I raised it back in September 2017. Well, both Councillor Rogers and myself raised it. And what the guidance I want from you is, do I make an amendment to this now to add an additional item, or what should I do?
Well, it's open to you, Councillor Amos, to propose a further amendment if you want to add something in, but are you in a position to do that? Do you have the figures and the necessary detail to make that amendment?
I just thank you, Caris, for that. I haven't got figures, no, but could I put some sort of amendment in there that a figure be put in there, or a line put in there for discussion with the leader and the member for the opposition? Is that a possibility?
Well, it's not quite the same as what we've just been discussing, unfortunately, because what we have been discussing is the full report, which has been the subject of public disclosure and has been made available to everybody to consider in advance of this meeting. You're now attempting to do something which is very different from that, and that's introduce something entirely new. I know that it's not new in the sense that you've talked about it before, but we're not in a position to consider the rights and wrongs of that issue because it's not something that has been raised and covered in the report.
Monitoring Officer, I don't know if you can see my hand up or not. Is it an opportune moment for me to address Councillor Amos to give some reassurance or not?
You can do that if it would assist. I think we're so far off the subject of the report now that probably it won't make any difference. But yes, if you want to be able to do that, please feel free to do that.
That's fine by me. I'm sure the leader will give me all the assurance that I need.
Thank you, Councillor Amos. And colleagues, I can give you some assurance with regards to that matter. Councillor Amos, as you know, through some messaging that we've had on social media recently, that item is currently being looked at actually this week by Judith Jones and supported by Councillor David Hughes and Councillor Declan Salmon. And that is with support from yourself and Councillor Tony Rogers. As you quite correctly said, it is something you've been very passionate about. So if I can give you some reassurance, we are looking at that matter and we shall bring a report to Council as soon as possible to look at cemetery gates closure. Does that help you, Julian?
Mr. Mayor, that is ample reassurance, leader, and I'm happy with that.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Mayor, I don't see anybody else indicating that they have a question. So you may be able to move on to comments.
Right. Any comments, members? I can't see. Oh, Dan Rob. Sorry, Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, I thought this would have been a walk in the park tonight. I didn't think we'd have the aggro that we had, quite personally, but we got there in the end, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. There are no more comments, Monitoring Officer.
Yeah. So if we take that to the vote, could you please firstly show if you wish to abstain? Thank you. Could you please show if you wish to vote against the recommendations? Thank you. Could you show if you are voting for the recommendations? And that is complete and that is carried, Mr. Mayor. I wonder if we can make sure that Councillor Andrew Barry returns to join the meeting.
Can we please let them know? Councillor John Thomas.
Oh yes, and Councillor John Thomas, I'm so sorry. And then if everybody could lower their hands, please.
Oh. Including the Mayor.
Including the Mayor.
I can see one hand. Is it one hand up?
I think it's Councillor Smith.
Oh, it's gone. Oh, it's back.
Yes, Councillor Bill Smith, can you? Yeah, there we are. That's fine. That's sorted out.
Right. Okay. We're going to change the order of items 5 and 6. So item 6, can I consider the report of interim chief executive and ask Councillor Andrew Barry, could I invite you to address the councillor? And I notice that Councillor Mitten, the leader, has left the meeting. So Councillor Andrew Barry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The cabinet portfolio functions of the council leader. Straightforward, unlike the last one. Report from Legal and Democratic Department outlining the changes required within the Constitution, allowing the leader to retain and use her considerable experience within the learned portfolio, as well as carrying out the chairperson of cabinet and the leader of council roles. It is worth noting the Assurance Board have been notified of these potential changes, and I'm more than happy with the suggestion. The recommendations, Mr. Mayor, 2.1, 2.2, 2.1, the amendment of the Constitution to permit the Leader of the Council to carry out the functions of a portfolio member be approved, and 2.2, the Council's Constitution be amended to reflect 2.1 above be approved. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, can we have a seconder for that, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And in seconding this, I would commend this to members. I think in this virtual chamber, education is significantly important to this council, and I know to all this council members. Stability in this area of the council's work, particularly where we are with COVID right now, is absolutely integral to how we manoeuvre ourselves out of this, and obviously significant changes on a pretty weekly basis in respect of our schools and learning. Councillors recently, full council supported the Raising Attainment, Raising Standards strategy, which is a key cornerstone of us driving forward standards and attainment across Merthyr Tydfil. As Councillor Barry has said, the Assurance Board has been consulted and are supportive of this. And obviously the work that Councillor Mitten has done with Sir Walker and colleagues around the Educational Improvement Panel are all significant to why Councillor Mitten should maintain her education portfolio alongside that of Leader. And in saying those things, I second and commend this to Council this evening.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, we go on to any questions? We have Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to ask the question of the Leader, actually, but I failed to recognise in my tiny brain that she needed to declare an interest on this one. So I'll ask the question anyway. I know the answer, but I want to go on record as asking, and that was, are you confident that you can continue with your education portfolio and also undertake the difficult position of Leader together? I think the answer would be yes, because here we are looking to change the Constitution, and I've got every confidence in Councillor Mitten to do that. But I just wanted to ask the question. I don't think it's going to be answered, Mr. Mayor, because Councillor Mitten's not here. But the sheer fact that we are addressing it, I think, answers itself. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if it would be helpful, obviously Councillor Mitten isn't able to speak on this matter, Councillor Roberts, but it's interesting to say that the very same question was asked of her by the Assurance Board. So I know the response that Councillor Mitten gave. It will be an absolute challenge, but it's one that Councillor Mitten is very committed to. She has a very supportive cabinet and chief officer and team of elected members. Councillor Mitten wouldn't be the first Leader to hold a portfolio, and actually there's another Leader of council in Flintshire who actually himself maintains the portfolio for education because of his skills, knowledge and experience. So I think that's why for this council where we are currently, that Councillor Mitten maintaining this is so important for us moving forward. So she's very committed to this, and this is something that she's very passionate about and wants to do. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you for that very comprehensive answer, Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, I wonder if I could also just chip in there that the Leader had always held a portfolio until the previous administration, where some very specific reasons led to the Leader at that time changing the arrangements so that he didn't also hold a portfolio. But until then, the Leader had always held a portfolio, so it was more the usual course of events at that time.
Thank you. Are there any more questions?
No, Chair.
Any comments? Councillor David Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we need to point out that the reason that the Labour, Darren has fronted a question from the Labour group, is that we are genuinely concerned for Lisa's well-being. Though what Councillor Davis has said has given some support to that and some possible comfort to our queries. But I'd be happy to support this, but we were genuinely concerned about her well-being.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Right, so if there are no more comments, I'll hand over to the monitoring officer.
Thank you. So if we can take it to the vote, please, members. Are there, can any member who wishes to abstain, please show now. Thank you. And any member who wishes to vote against the recommendation, please show now. And members voting in favour of the recommendation, please show now. And that's complete and that's carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Members, you can put our hands down, please. And we'll go back now to item number 5.
If Councillor Mitten can rejoin us. There, yeah. She's there. Thank you.
And can I ask then its appointment and amendment the structure of the cabinet? Can I ask Councillor the leader Lisa Mitten could I invite you to address the council?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, in doing so, obviously, I just want to reiterate the summary of the report at 1.1. After a period of unprecedented pressure and disruption caused by the national pandemic, following on closely from and overlapping with the period of intervention and intense scrutiny by regulatory bodies, the council needs to ensure that its governance arrangements are properly focused in order to deliver its objectives. As you know, we have the Assurance Board with us. I have had some really good dialogue with those over the last couple of weeks since taking on the leadership. And basically it is for us to have this stability going forward, but really to focus on what we need to do to bring about transformation, governance, you know, to take Merthyr Tydfil forward into the future. As part of that process, I have proposed that there will be a change in the cabinet and looking at cabinet portfolios with the creation of a cabinet position with responsibility for transformation and commercialisation, which with our RTI, as we presented to the Assurance Board on Friday, will really take this forward. And I am pleased to say that after my ministerial meeting this morning, my meeting, my own individual meeting with the Assurance Board last week, and discussions with colleagues in this virtual room, you know, in this full council tonight, in the Assurance Board meeting on Friday, that this was definitely seen as a positive move for us moving forward. As I understand, you voted in favour for me retaining my education portfolio, and thank you, colleagues, for that. And so whilst I will be performing the Office of Leader and that cabinet portfolio, then whilst I am revising the cabinet leads, it will not necessitate the need for a payment of a further senior salary. So I will now go to the recommendations, and they are at 2.1. The creation of a cabinet role with responsibility for transformation and commercialisation be approved, and the making of the necessary amendments to the Constitution to provide, apologies, got a giggle there, the making of the necessary amendments to the Constitution to provide for this position by the monitoring officer be approved. And I shall look after the mayor after this concludes and make sure my mayor is not cold at any point in the future. But on an important note, I move those two recommendations, 2.1 and 2.2.
Apologies.
That's okay, Mr. Mayor.
Do you have a seconder?
Do we have a seconder for this, please?
And I'm delighted to second that. I think this strengthens where this council needs to go in terms of the work we do currently with the Assurance Board, our regulators, in terms of taking forward our recovery, transformation and improvement plan.
Right, members, any questions?
Councillor Jago has her hand up. I'm not sure if that's because she has a question. No.
Apologies.
That's okay. Then Councillor Amos, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carys. I'd just like to ask, at 1.1 it says obviously we're going through a frightful pandemic at the moment. Hopefully we're not going to have that forever. And that is down, I'm wondering why that is down as a reason to make this quite significant change. And the other question really is, I recognise what the leader has said about how important this is because of largely because because of what what Steve Thomas has said in the Transformation Board. But I'd just like to ask why this work couldn't be incorporated into the governor's portfolio, because it seems to be a similar line of work. Those are my two questions, please. Carys.
Well, Carys, may I answer those? Is that okay? Yeah, okay. Councillor Amos, Julian, thank you for that. The first answer in relation to the first point you made regarding why the unprecedented pressure and disruption caused by the pandemic was in the body of this report is because whilst we're in this pandemic, and let's hope that there is a brighter future for us now with the vaccinations, coming out and rolling out, there is still going to be significant pressure on this local authority as we move, hopefully, out of this pandemic. We will see the fallout of this pandemic for months, if not years ahead, and we need strategic focus on what that has meant. One of those particularly is homelessness. It is a massive issue for us at the moment, and it is something that, we are needing to look at and give clear focus on in the future. So that's the reason for that. The other reason for having this and splitting some of those responsibilities is again alluding to what I've just said. Jill, we've been in unprecedented times. This is something we need to change. But what we must do as well is focus on the future. We need to take Merthyr Tydfil forward. So whilst we have this awful pandemic running alongside everything that we do, let's also continue with the transformation and the commercialisation and taking Merthyr Tydfil forward, as I said. And the other thing that comes with our role as well is a focus on the financial element of that. So the cabinet member then would really have financial responsibility to look at the budgets for that and have a focus on that moving into the future as well. So really it's about driving a more positive momentum forward, Jill, for Merthyr Tydfil, as well as alongside having the issues that we have as a fallout really from this sad pandemic.
Councillor Tanya Skinner, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Skinner.
Yeah, my question is to the leader. Given the fact that you've mentioned that this is such a vital post, and a lot of it depends on, you've mentioned about the input from Welsh Government and the importance of the post being recommended by them. I would imagine that this is a highly skilled post that would come with a lot of experience and knowledge. So what process are you using to determine that you get the right cabinet member in post?
Thank you, Councillor Skinner, and you're quite right. I need somebody who has, the experience and the skills to take this forward. So as a matter of course, as leader, I have somebody significant in mind, but tomorrow morning I am meeting with my Chief Executive, my Deputy Chief Executive, to address my ideas on that post with them, if it does go through tonight, and then I will be announcing who will actually sit in that post at an opportune moment by bringing a further report or an information report to Council. But you are quite right, it really does need a person with the expertise and the skills to take it forward.
Councillor Darren Roberts, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully support this position. Obviously, I've been present at the Improvement Board meetings with the leader and Cabinet and Clive as deputy for the opposition, and there's been some concern over the governance arrangements within the local authority for some time, obviously pre-pandemic anyway, so this sort of goes prior to March of 2020. It is a crucial portfolio, we all agree on that, and as such, do you think it will need a separate scrutiny committee, or do you think that this will be rolled into the governance scrutiny committee moving forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts, and thank you once again for yours and Clive's support. We had a post sort of evaluation meeting, I would call it, or reflection meeting, I would call it, after the Assurance Board on Friday, and I really do welcome your support and your feedback in relation to that and the way forward for us. As you'll see in 3.4, Darren, there will be some adjustment to the scope of the existing portfolios, and that is a matter for me to discuss with the Deputy Chief Executive and the Chief Executive tomorrow. But you're quite right, and that is one reason that I'm looking at the stability of the chair of governance scrutiny as well, because, you know, we do want that stability moving forward. And what I would say to you is this is an opportune moment for us, following the WAO recommendations and information from the Assurance Board, that we really give that the focus that it needs. So Darren, with yourself and other colleagues as well, we'll have a look at the Constitution, we'll have a look at scrutiny's performance. As you know, we talked about that on Friday, and making sure that we've got, you know, a very robust strategy for scrutiny moving forward. And so what I'll do is, if there are any changes, then I shall discuss that with yourselves and then bring a paper to council if it's so needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I totally support that. And like I say, with the importance of this and the fact that we have got another portfolio member, I think it's only right that that portfolio member is held to account by other members of the authority. So if there is the possibility of an additional scrutiny committee, I would certainly welcome that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. I'll take that on board.
Thank you.
I'm not sure whether Councillor Amos has got his hand up as a legacy or as a new question.
Councillor Amos, I think it's a legacy.
It's a legacy, okay. In that case, I don't think you have any other questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Can we go on to any comments, members? I can't see any.
Oh, there are no indications, Mr. Mayor.
So, Montaza, can we go to the vote, please?
Yes.
Oh, we just got one.
So, is that a comment, Councillor Amos? Jan, is that?
Yeah. So, sorry, I was a bit slow off the mark there then. As I think I intimated in the question, really, I fully support the creation of this post. And as someone, I wasn't privy to the board that both Councillor Roberts and the leader has alluded to. I'm not entirely convinced that there is a need for a separate cabinet post. So, well, that's my observation on it, really. I'm not entirely convinced about that. Perhaps if I'd been, I know I couldn't have been, but if I had been at the board, I might have taken a different view. But that's the only observation I've got on it, really.
Leader?
It's okay, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, it was left by an error.
Okay.
I don't think that you have any other comments, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we'll put it to the vote then, please.
Thank you. So, members, if could I first ask anybody who wishes to abstain, could you please show now? Thank you. Could I ask anybody who wishes to vote against, could you please show now? And finally, could I ask that everybody who wishes to vote in favour of the recommendation, please show now? And that is complete and that is carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Montaza. Thank you, councillors, members. We'll go on to item 7, preparation for adult transition policy. I call upon Councillor Chris Davis. Could I invite you to address the council, please?
Yeah, thank
please,
you,
could we
Mr.
put
Mayor.
some of the hands down, please?
Yeah, while people are doing that, then, Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased to bring this report. Obviously this afternoon, or it was actually now this evening. Huge amounts of work by officers following 2 adult practice reviews and recommendations from the Cwm Taf Morgannwg Safeguarding Board obviously lead to this report being in front of members this evening. Obviously, ensuring seamless transition for our young people through to adulthood and adult services is imperative. It's important that we all own that, particularly as corporate parents of this council. The policy seeks to set out our in-house arrangements between children's and adult services, and you'll see that referenced throughout the appendix, which is the policy. And I'm really pleased by this. Huge amount of work by colleagues in children's and adults has been undertaken. So I think for us, in terms of transition, getting the assessments completed at the right time in a person-centred way and ensuring the right people involved is absolutely key. I think partnership work on a multi-agency basis in regards to transition is also really important for getting the best outcomes for our young people, particularly those who've got complex needs, our care leavers, and just those who need that little bit of help in hand and need support and need to know, and the carers need to know, and their families need to know, and social workers and everybody around them need to know that we're going to get this right for them. Work around this multi-agency work is well developed and well on its way, and the report talks about strengthening links with CAMHS and others, and members will note the recent announcement this week of a further £9.4 million from the Welsh Government into CAMHS services is going to be really, really important. I'm pleased to say that the transition planning panel, as referenced in the report, is now chaired by Angela Edwin, our head of adult services, and this is a welcome move in terms of that ownership and that smooth delivery of this in terms of children and young people's transferring over to adults. The 7 principles of good and effective transition are set out in the appendix of the report, are solid, and they build on the foundations that are absolutely important. So, Mr. Mayor, subject to any questions and comments from members, I'm pleased to propose the recommendations that the transition policy be approved by Council tonight. And in doing so, can I say that this has gone through the scrutiny process, through Social Services Scrutiny Committee, through the Safeguarding Board and the Corporate Parenting Board. So there's been quite extensive consultation and work on this with our partners, and I just want to commend the work of our officers across children and adult services and our partners in getting us to this stage and bringing this in really important policy through Council this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Can I have a seconder for that, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I wholeheartedly second that and also support everything that Councillor Davis has said. He knows this is something of a passion of mine as well. So I'm very happy to second our report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, can we put any questions, please?
There are no questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Any comments, members?
No comments, Mr. Mayor.
Can we put that to the vote then, please?
Yes. So, can I?
Oh.
I think that was probably just people going too quickly. So, if everybody puts their hands down now, and then I'll ask if there's anybody who wishes to abstain. Could you please show now? Thank you. Anybody wishing to vote against the recommendations, please show now. Thank you. Anybody voting in favour of the recommendations, please show now. And that is complete, and that is carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Morning Officer. We'll go on now to item 8, to deal with any urgent business or correspondence. There is no urgent business. To go on to item 9, receiving communication received by His Worship the Mayor. There are no communications. And thank you myself, thank you. And that was the last item on the agenda. Thank you very much for the meeting. Thank you,
Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
Take care.